Bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got Bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got Bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs.
Bows and TKOs. We are live, episode 140, coming at you from the Valley. I'm your host, Shane Gillette, for this weekly MMA podcast, streaming anywhere you listen to your podcasts with the videos on YouTube. And we have one hell of a show after that amazing UFC Seattle card this past weekend. Again, wish I saw that sucker in person. But we have a ton of fights that have been announced. We will recap and chat a little bit about PFL Pittsburgh and RAF 7 and preview this weekend's Apex card. And I'm wearing my Angels gear, got my Trout jersey on, baseball's back. The Angels started out 2-0. Get your hopes up a little bit. I think the Angels are the same Angels, but Mike Trout's healthy. So I'm going to have to go to Anaheim and catch the team here soon. Regardless, let's jump in and talk MMA. So we actually get a fight that's getting booked this weekend. We have Dakota Hope making his UFC debut against longtime PFL Bellator former UFC fighter Kai Kamaka III. So a little bit of depth added to this very light card. We have Rafa Garcia and Alexander Hernandez April 25th. Great showdown in the lightweight division. We have Charles Radke and Francisco Prado move to UFC 327. On May 2nd, a bunch of fights down under for the Perth card. We have Jonathan Mikulev and Themba Garimbo, Shamil Gaziev and Brando Perichik, and Colby Thickness taking on Vince Morales. What a banger booked for UFC 328. We get Joel Alvarez and Yaroslav Amosov. Really excited for that one. On May 16th, we get Toko Tacos taking on Ivan Erslan. Duho Choi coming back against Daniel Santos. And Timmy Kwamba taking on Bernardo Sopa. On May 29th, I think this is all kind of a couple days situation for Road to the UFC. We have Shi Ming the Doctor taking on Pua Tomar. Rong Zhu taking on Victor Martinez. Ray Suaria taking on Jesus Aguilar. And Arichi Long taking on Cody Hayden. As well as Loma Luka Bunmi taking on Jacqueline Amarim. And Kai Asakura moving up to the bantamweight division, taking on Cameron Smotherman. Then we have some fights booked all the way out in June. On June 6th, we have Jordan Levitt and Joe Anderson Brito. Iwo Baranowski taking on Billy Elikana. Matt Schnell and Emmanuel Rodriguez, a fun one in the flyweight division. And then June 20th, we have Carol Hossa taking on Luana Santos, big time fight. Andre Lima, Kevin Borjas. And then June 27th, this will be in Baku. Back-to-back years in Baku. Asu Almabayev taking on Charles Johnson. Then there has been some UFC news, some fighters cut from the roster. No big surprises here. Antonio Tricoli, Bruno Brazil, and Luana Carolina removed from the UFC. And Alibi Adiris, the Ultimate Fighter alum, who got a recent win against Ode Osborne that is overturned as he is suspended for 12 months. Seems like a pretty serious situation with the substance he had used. I would say probably one of the better cards in PFL in quite some time. New owner, no more tournament situation, trying to kind of rebrand and redevelop a little bit. But solid card. I didn't get to watch it all. There was so much happening on Saturday. But it went down in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the Burgh. All the Yinzers. We had Jacob Kazuba with a unanimous decision over Nathan Schulte. We had Jack Cartwright in a very close split decision over Alan Bagoso. Jacob Kazuba is 16-0, by the way. We had 8-0 Alexei Pregande with a unanimous decision over ex-UFCer Julio Arce. Seems like a lot of these guys that go into the PFL don't do very well. That's why the UFC got rid of them. We had Lazaro Dayron with unanimous decision over Jacob Thrall. Ex-UFCer Ariane Lipski da Silva with the unanimous decision over Samiko Inaba. In the co-main, we had a crazy knockout. These guys just went at it like a car crash in the middle of the octagon. But Impa Kasaganai with a round 1 TKO over Dalton Rosta after Impa got highlighted by Joaquin Buckley with one of the more insane knockouts I've ever seen. What a career he's had in the PFL. Good for you, Impa. And then in the main event, slight work here. Johnny Eblen throwing Brian Battle around as Johnny Eblen had a round 1 submission via rear naked choke over Brian Battle. We also had RAF 7 this weekend. This whole card, the whole thing was about the main event, the Giorgio Arman Sarukian rematch. But we had Trent Hidley with a tech fall 12-0 over Pat Downey. Pat Downey not having a lot of success in freestyle. We had Jason Nolf with the tech fall 10-0 over David Mistulov. I believe that was a short notice replacement. We had Bo Bassett with a tech fall 13-3 over Vladimir Kinshagashvili. We had Wyatt Hendrickson 6-2 over Trent Hilger. For the women's, Kennedy Blades wins again, tech fall 11-0 over Milana Dudiva. We had Kyle Snyder, although it was 3-3, he got the victory over Ahmed Tuzudanov. Fantastic matchup. Kyle Dake with an impressive 7-1 win over Parker Keckelson. Colby Covington dominating Dylan Dennis 14-4 with the tech fall. In the main event, Arman Sarukian 9-3 with a beautiful toss, 4-point takedown over Giorgio Poyas in the rematch. And Giorgio actually paid him, I think it was $10,000 or $15,000 that they bet if they could take each other down. And Arman showed a child that he's given the money to that's in need. Great stuff, fantastic card, good for the PFL, good card. But last weekend was all about UFC Seattle. A little bit more tame in my picks. I went 7-5-1 after going 12-1 last weekend. Overall, looking good. 848 wins, 415 losses, 12 no contests and draws. On the year, 68-25-1. To recap this card, I mean, at this point in the year, this was card of the year. A big STFU to the fans that have been knocking the UFC. The fans showed out. The energy was electric. Sold out $41 million gate at the new Climate Pledge Arena. I mean, the entire card showed out from the beginning. Delivered more than ever. And there was no titles on the line. No double titles. No big things. We have UFC Miami coming up. And we also got an awesome Mighty Mouse Hall of Fame induction. The UFC tried to get him to go to UFC Seattle last year. He didn't. I think they're like, hey, you need to go this year. So, a little bit past its time, but Mighty Mouse, Demetrius Johnson, deservedly into the Hall of Fame. I think he's about an hour and a half south of Seattle. I guess we could do a quick look at Demetrius's career. He basically kept the flyweight division alive when it came from the WEC. They wanted to cut it. They ended up trading him for, oh man, it's going to drive me nuts. Ben Askren, and then he got that knee knockout up the middle from Jorge Masvidal. I was there live. John Jones, Thiago Santos, my first UFC event. But Mighty Mouse had started in the WEC, started with a loss, racked up a couple wins. They came to the UFC. He got a couple decision wins, lost to Dominic Cruz for the Bantamweight Championship, moved to flyweight, made the flyweight title against Joseph Benavidez and won a split decision, which Joseph at the time was a dude. Had a decision over John Dodson, John Moraga, knocked out Joseph Benavidez in a rematch in round 1, beat Kyogi Horiguchi via armbar in round 5, beat John Dodson again, Henry Cejudo by TKO knees to the body back in April of 2016, beat Tim Elliott, beat Ray Borg, lost to Henry Cejudo, split decision for the flyweight championship. That's when he was traded to 1 He rung up 3 wins and 1 against people I don't know. Then he lost to Adriano Moraes via a knee in round 2. Won the rematch via a knee in round 4. And then the trilogy fight, he had a unanimous decision over Adrian Moraes and retired. And he says his black ass ain't ever coming back, and I don't doubt him. What he's doing on YouTube, actually getting to know him as a human, the training vlogs where he's training with TJ Dillashaw, the interviews. I mean, I think he is peak YouTube content right now. Amazing career. He is definitely on my Mount Rushmore and is one of the more underrated fighters in UFC history. Well deserved in the Hall of Fame. First flyweight champion. When we look at this card, I mean, the prelims delivered. There was some judging and reffing issues that put a little damper on the momentum. But the main card was fantastic. Plenty of violence, plenty of excitement, the whole 9. It was just a bummer. There was a tough outing for one of the middleweight's best. But I am recapping this card an 8 out of 10. A lot of people enjoyed the main event. I wanted to see a little bit more. I think if that would have been a spectacular fight, I would have gave it a 9 out of 10. But regardless, card of the year in my book. What we've seen on this card that we will break down here in a second, this is better than anything any other MMA promotion's doing. We talked about the Netflix MVP card. There's no way they could live up to that. And there's a lot of names on here for OG UFC fans, for some casuals. They may not have known of them, and they're probably like, holy cow, this was awesome. There was only one fight we did not break down. We had Laren Douglas with a round 1 TKO over Julian Erosa. But we'll kick this off in the prelims where we had a draw, a little bit of a bummer. We had Ricky Simon with a draw against Adrian Yanez. And of course it was a draw. This fight was razor close. A lot of striking from distance. I thought Ricky looked really good with the power shots, but Adrian had brilliant footwork, was boxing him up, and really caused a lot of damage. Watching the fight back, I could understand the draw. A lot of people think Yanez should have won, but the very close round 1 was a big difference maker. Ricky Simon almost knocked out. Supposedly he couldn't even see Adrian in the 3rd round, so not too surprised, but fantastic display. This was kind of must-win territory for both men, so it really doesn't help them move anywhere. I hope they just book back the rematch somewhat here soon, depending on injuries. But Adrian, after being out of the ring, definitely, like I expected, looked like the best version of himself in the middle of his prime. Ricky didn't have as much success wrestling because he couldn't close distance. Every time he got in close, Adrian was giving him a 2-3 piece chicken nugget, and he was obviously feeling the effects of that. I thought he would have more success grappling, and that's why I had picked him. I knew it would be a close fight, but it just sucks for these guys making the money they are. Really haven't broke the edge and cracked it to be able to really make good money. But regardless, awesome fight. Really early. I was shocked how early this was in the cards, as Ricky is from Washington State as well. I mean, statistically, pretty close. Ricky landed 52 total strikes, 44 of them significant. He only had 2 takedowns in 5 attempts and 2 minutes and 6 seconds of control time. And Adrian landed 73 total strikes, 71 of them significant with a knockdown. And again, watching it back, I'm not too shocked about the draw, but I did think Adrian Yanez won it real time and watching it back. So Ricky now is 2-3-1 since 2023, and Adrian is 1-3-1 since 2023. Again, these guys were desperate. Hopefully they can run it back here shortly or get new opponents fairly quickly. Moving on, we had Navajo Sterling with a round 2 TKO over Bruno Lopez. Navajo finally gets a finish in the UFC. In round 1, both men were having success with their striking, but Navajo had a major victory defending all of Bruno's takedowns early in the fight. In round 2, Navajo found the mark to rock Bruno early, and when he did, he pounced on him for over a minute. Credit to Bruno, he was battling, trying to stay alive. They finally called the fight when Sterling got on top and landed some vicious ground and pound. But I feel like watching this, the UFC, since they've done the $25K bonus, are like, hey, make sure this is a finish. It seems like the leashes are a lot longer. I think this fight could have got called a lot sooner. Statistically, Navajo landed 90 total strikes, 63 of them significant with a knockdown. A lot of these in round 2 after he poured it on. Bruno landed 36 total, 28 significant, but was 0 for 8 in takedown attempts. Big win for Navajo. So Navajo stays undefeated. He extends that winning streak to 9, 5-0 in the UFC. Bruno extends that losing streak to 2. He is 2-2 in the UFC. And what's next? I actually like Navajo's call out of Ian Kutalaba. I'm all for that. And for Bruno, how about Ibo Aslan? Moving on, how about the return of Casey O'Neill with a round 1 knockout over Gabriela Fernandez. I mean, whew, what a performance by Casey after more than a year and a half off recovering from her knee injury. She landed a very nice counter left hook early in the fight, jumped on Gabriela for a quick finish in the first round after they spent, the first couple of minutes just kind of measuring each other up and figuring out the distance. Regardless, huge knockout, massive win for Casey. I can't wait to see what she does next. You could see the emotion on her. It was just a really cool moment in the octagon. Statistically, Casey landed 23 total and significant strikes with the knockdown. Gabriela only landed 8 total and significant. So Casey extends that winning streak to 2. She is 2-2 since 2023 and moves up 1 spot in the rankings to number 11. And Gabriela ends her 3-fight winning streak. She starts a new losing streak. She's an even 3-3 since 2023 and drops 1 spot to number 15. So what's next? I'd like to see Casey and Wang Kong. I think that would be a great fight. And for Gabriela, how about Veronica Hardy? Moving on, still in the prelims, we had Tyrell Fortune with a unanimous decision over Marcin Tybura. This is a fight I got wrong, but I had no confidence in this pick. Got to pick him. This was kind of a weird fight. I thought Marcin would be the guy leading the grappling battle, and that was not the case. As Tyrell kind of sold out on some takedowns, as he had 3 takedowns in 5 attempts, and was able to get quite a bit of control time. And then there was the instance where Bruce Buffer read the scorecards and actually announced it as a decision victory by Marcin Tybura. Tyrell Fortune had already left. They took a minute, brought Tyrell back, announced Tyrell as the winner. He did win. He did have a lot of takedowns and control time with no damage. While the fight was standing, Marcin was able to land the better strikes. And in the 3rd round, which is a decisive round, I thought Marcin won round 1, Tyrell round 2. Round 3, Marcin was able to get back up from being taken down and landed a couple shots. So it was a very close. I think this actually had better opportunity to be a draw than the Ricky Simone fight. But regardless, massive win for Tyrell coming to the UFC. He took this fight on short notice, seemed to be kind of worn out and gassed out a little bit, which you can't really blame him. But Marcin, who's at about 40 years old, I was just shocked how he was taken down and controlled. He definitely only has a couple fights left in him. Statistically, this is what I'm talking about. Marcin landed 85 total strikes, 47 of them significant. He was 0 for 1 in takedowns. Tyrell only landed 49 total and 30 of them significant. So about half the amount of total, 17 less of them significant. He did have 3 takedowns in 5 attempts and 5 minutes and 7 seconds of control time, which was majority of round 2. So Tyrell extends that winning streak to 4, getting a victory in his UFC debut. He enters the top 15 at number 10. He's getting thrown right into the deep end. And Marcin extends his losing streak to 2. He is 3-3 since 2024, which at his age to have 6 fights in 2 years, plus the rest of the year remaining. Credit to him. But he drops 3 spots to number 11. So what's next? Again, here you go, Tyrell. You're right into the deep end. He's going to have his work cut out for him jumping into the top 15. I think a good matchup would be Ante Delia. And for Marcin, again, he has to be close to being done. I would have liked to see him fight Shamil Gaziev, but that got booked. So he's going to have to fight down pretty far. He's going to have to let some of the division shake out. Then still in the prelims, we had the battle of 2 men from Seattle, a fight I got wrong. We had Lance Gibson Jr. with a round 1 TKO over Chase Hooper. And Chase actually came out very aggressive with the striking. After the fight, especially on social media, a lot of people are acting like Chase should be cut from the UFC. He should do UFC BJJ. Chase is only 26 years old. I feel like we've seen a huge improvement from him. He's starting to believe in his hands. He was a little overzealous, didn't have good defense. But I will say, he got caught in a bad spot and got rocked with a vicious elbow. I think anybody would get rocked by how hard that elbow was. Then Lance was able to get an up kick while he was trying to recover and basically destroyed him. And again, I think anybody else that would have got hit by that 2-strike combo would have been in trouble. But I think if he would have escaped the clinch, avoided that elbow, he looked pretty confident. He was doing his thing, let alone we didn't even really see him go to the grappling. I don't think we need to give up on Chase. I know he's coming off back-to-back losses, but I think he still has a promising career. On Chase's run, he's defeated Jordan Levitt, who's had some nice wins. Jim Miller, those aren't easy fights. He has been a little bit too aggressive, hasn't mixed in his grappling early, which definitely cost him here. But he did have a takedown attempt where he was deep on a single. Credit to Lance for the good defense, able to break away. And Lance coming in, showing that he's a hard hitter. He took on King Green on short notice and fought very well with only 3 days prior notice. And then beats Chase in his hometown. He's from Seattle as well, lives in Canada now. But again, I think Chase will be fine. I think we could pump the brakes a little bit. He's only 26 years old. Statistically, Chase landed 13 total strikes, 11 of them significant. He was 0 for 2 in takedowns. And Lance landed 19 total strikes, 13 of them significant with a knockdown. But Lance starts a new winning streak. He's 1-1 in the UFC. Chase extends that losing streak to 2, but he is 5-2 since 2023. Now, I assume Chase is going to take some time. He's got a young baby at home to heal up, get back to the gym. But I'd like to see him take on a fellow grappler. How about Ismail Bonfim? And for Lance, he could square up with Mike Davis. Still in the prelims, in the prelim headliner, fight of the night. I figured this might have a chance. It didn't go the way I thought it would, as this is another fight I got wrong. But we had Tufik Musayev with unanimous decision over Ignacio Bahamondes. And if you watch this fight, early Ignacio was putting work in, and then we had a complete 180 because Ignacio was off to a fantastic start, was doing work on Tofik with the striking, had him rocked the first few minutes, did good managing distance because Ignacio was able to stay at his striking range as the taller, longer striker, and Musayev couldn't find his way in. But the big thing is when Ignacio had rocked Tofik, they were up against the cage. He went to go take him down, which I don't think was the best decision. But when he did, Tofik, both hands, grabbed the cage, was able to avoid the takedown. The ref didn't do anything. And that's really what changed the fight. Because when Tofik was on top, he landed a vicious elbow that, right above the eye, sliced up Ignacio, and it was just pouring blood all over the canvas. You hate to see a fight turned that way once you have a cut. When he had rocked Tofik, and because he grabbed the cage, that was really the differentiator. But Tofik had tried for a couple more takedowns after Ignacio got back up. He got one with 10 seconds left in the round before he had cut him. So I did have Ignacio up round 1. And then again, at the beginning of round 2, Ignacio knocked Tofik down. Ignacio grabbed the cage, had him bloodied up, was the difference in the fight, really, in my mind, and had a very dominant round. So I had it 1-1 going into round 3. But the thing I didn't like is Ignacio went to straight jiu-jitsu mode, which he's had submissions. Tofik has been submitted as well. He jumped a guillotine. It didn't work out. He's bleeding profusely. It's easy for Tofik to slip in and out of submissions. But also, he was then sitting in guard, trying arm bars, trying triangle chokes. I don't think in that situation that you should be sitting there trying jiu-jitsu. I know he's trying to be in guard and avoid getting hit in that cut and having the blood worse. But then there was also a moment where Tofik landed a pretty wild headbutt. It seemed pretty purposeful. Again, with the double grab in the cage in round 2, I feel like that should have been warranted at least a point. 2 illegal moves. Nothing is back. But again, we have replay. At the end of round 2, we could have looked when he tried to take him down. Hey, here's a stern warning. Then when the headbutt happens, it's a point. So I wish we could use replay a little bit better about that, because clearly somebody, everybody had to have known about it. I'm sure the official knew about it. Regardless, Tawfiq kept getting takedowns. Ignacio's trying to fight off his back. I think he should have got up and tried to strike with him, but I think that cut was just too big of a deal. He was too worried about it. But there was blatant illegal moves. I just don't like that. I am a fan of Tawfiq. I'm glad he gets to fight stiff level competition. Very big loss for Ignacio, but he had a terrible game plan after he got cut. But now Tawfiq is in the deep end of his UFC. He's in his prime. Now he's in the deep end of the debatably the best division, the UFC, in the lightweight division. And I'm not too happy about the way it happened. It is what it is. Statistically, Ignacio landed 46 total strikes, 32 of them significant. He had 2 submission attempts, a reversal, a knockdown, was 0 for 1 in takedowns, and had 1 minute and 17 seconds of control time. Tawfiq landed 93 total strikes, only 34 significant. He had 3 takedowns and 5 attempts, a reversal, and 7 minutes and 51 seconds of control time. So now Tawfiq starts a new winning streak. He's 1-1 in the UFC. And after his dominant loss in his UFC debut against Miktobek Orolbai, thought he might get cut. Now he gets this crazy win. Now he's going to have to earn it. And for Ignacio, he extends that losing streak to 2. But he has been active, and he still has a 4-3 record since 2023. So where do these guys go next? I think Ignacio could take on Diego Fajeda. And for Tawfiq, how about a showdown against Ludovit Klein? So yeah, just in the prelims, Laren Douglas, round 1 TKO, hard-fought draw. Hate that it was a draw, but then Navajo Sterling with the knockout. Casey O'Neill with a fantastic round 1 knockout. Tyrell Fortune, kind of a sloppy fight, but win in his UFC debut. Lance Gibson with a vicious finish. Tawfiq Musayev, Ignacio, bloodied fight of the night. Hate to see it turn out that way, but big win for Tawfiq. And then in the main card, we just got right back into it. Terrence McKinney doing T-Rex things, getting a round 1 TKO over Kyle Nelson. And Terrence just walked Kyle down, landed a nice jab, followed up with a 1-2 and a head kick. Kyle sat down against the cage. He came in with ground and pound and had the finish, I think, in 27 seconds. Kyle, credit to him. Taking that flush head kick was tough enough not to get his lights turned out immediately, but he kind of balled up, knew the fight was over. T-Rex was like a shark with blood in the water. But the craziest thing to me, yes, Terrence gets a finish bonus, but he still doesn't earn a bonus. All these finishes, fastest finishes, he still doesn't get a bonus. Regardless, it only took Terrence 15 total and 13 significant strikes. Kyle only landed 1 total and significant. So Terrence starts a new winning streak. He's 3-2 since 2024. Kyle starts a new losing streak. He is 2-2 since 2024. So what's next? Well, I would like to see Terrence take on Mateusz Renbecki. And for Kyle, how about Elves Brenner? Moving on, we get another finish. We had Yusri Bagari with a round 3 TKO over Mansour Abdul Malik. Another fight I got wrong. Another fight I felt like could have went either way. This was much like the Tawfiq fight before he had the illegal cage grab and cut Ignacio. Mansour just couldn't close distance. Yusri was chopping Mansour's leg. In the first round, he had his leg beat up. It was like chop suey. And that affected Mansour's strategy the entire fight. Belgori was able just to stick out a jab, have kicks the entire first round, and basically eliminated what Malik can do. And he lives off explosion, athleticism. If you can't get in there and put hands on him, it's going to be a long night in the octagon. Round 2, Mansour went for takedowns. Yusri, maybe not the best grappling defense, but was the taller, lengthier fighter. I feel like that played into defending the takedowns. And Yusri actually knocked Mansour down, and I thought he was knocked out, but he was saved by the bell at the very end of round 2. Again, I think they could have called the fight. I think with these finishing bonuses, there's a little bit more leash there. So Mansour's leg gets chop suey in first round. Second round basically gets knocked out. Somehow is fighting in round 3. And in the third, It was basically desperation mode. Malik was swinging recklessly, found himself getting taken down, getting a takedown eventually, but he couldn't do anything with it. Yusri was able to get back up, put the finishing touch on the fight. Big win for Yusri. You know, definitely a learning lesson in defeat for Mansour. He's still young, was undefeated, but Yusri is now in the mix. Another former stud kickboxer in the mix in the UFC. Statistically, Mansour landed 16 total and significant strikes. He only had 3 takedowns in 8 attempts, with 2 minutes and 7 seconds of control time. And Yusri landed 107 total strikes, 94 of them significant, with 2 knockdowns. So Yusri extends that winning streak to 5. He's 3-0 in the UFC. It's crazy how much he's grown in MMA, as he had to go to the Contender Series twice because they said in the first fight they didn't think he was ready. Now he has defeated Mansour Abdul Malik. And Mansour suffers his first pro loss. He is 4-1-1 in the UFC. So what do we do with Yusri? I think we book him with Michael Oleksiejczuk. That's a banger. And for Mansour, he could fight Ismail Nardiev. But then we had the double retirement fight. The moment for Michael Chiesa. I mean, basically this was slight work. He got a round 1 submission via rear naked choke over Nico Price, as Nico took this on short notice. But this turned out to be a double retirement fight. We knew it was going to be Chiesa's. I guess Nico before the fight said it was going to be his as well. I wasn't sure about that. But Michael was originally supposed to fight Carlston Harris. You know, I think that was a better matchup versus Nico on short notice. But it's a golden platter farewell tour, so to speak. And Michael didn't play around. He didn't play with his food. He got a takedown early and swiftly, a little too easily, but he was able to get his back, had hooks in, it was deep, took Nico's neck, it was over. Very long package, emotional moment. Michael left, got to hug his mom, got to have time on the mic. Really cool scene there. Nico put his gloves in the octagon. They didn't let him speak on the mic, which I get it. A little bit of a bummer. But really cool moment, dominant fashion for Chiesa. And statistically, Michael didn't even land a strike. He had a takedown in 2 attempts with the submission attempt, and Nico only landed 1 total and significant strike. So now Michael Chiesa ends his career on a 4-fight winning streak, 4-1 since 2023. Nico ends his career on a 4-fight losing streak, and he was 1-5 since 2023. So we can review their UFC careers quickly. Obviously, Michael Chiesa, more of a commentator working the desk anyways. But a guy that was never overly talented, pretty good size for the division, worked his butt off in the Ultimate Fighter, beat Ally Quinta to get a UFC contract with submission of the night with the rear naked choke. In his UFC debut, rear naked choke against Anton Kuvinin. Not too sure who that is. Then he was known for getting choked out in Bravo chokes. Jorge Masvidal got a submission with Michael in Seattle. So tough break there. He bounces back with a couple wins, including Francisco Trinaldo. Loses to Joe Lozon. Beats Jim Miller via rear naked choke. Rear naked chokes Beneil Dariush. He's at the highlight of his career. Then he has beef with Kevin Lee, loses to Kevin Lee via rear naked choke in round 1. Come back, loses against Anthony Pettis via armbar. Submits Carlos Condit via Kimura. Beats Diego Sanchez. This is 2019 Diego Sanchez, so he was still fighting at a decently high level. But then back-to-back big wins. Decisions over Rafael Dos Anjos, Neil Magny. Loses to Vicente Luque via Bravo choke. Loses to Kevin Holland via Bravo choke and Sean Brady via decision. Comes back, beats Tony Ferguson, Max Griffin, another tough fighter, Court McGee, and now Nico Price. So solid career, you know. He didn't have a top of the division moment, but had a few big wins. Beneil Dariush, Neil Magny, RDA, great career. So Nico has been fighting with the UFC since 2016. Wins his UFC debut via arm triangle. Gets a no contest against Alex Morano because Alex tested positive for marijuana, but he did get a round 2 knockout. Loses to Vicente Luque. Beats Randy Brown via round 2 knockout. Loses to Abdul Razak Al Hassan. Defeats Tim Means. Loses to Jeff Neal. Knocks out James Vick via upkick. Loses to Vicente Luque again. No contest to Donald Cerrone because Price was deducted 1 point for repeated eye pokes. And Price tested positive for carboxy THC. Loses to Michelle Pajeda. Beats Alex Oliveira. Loses to Robbie Lawler. Loses to Philip Rowe. Gets a win back against Alex Morano. You're like, okay, he's fighting at a pretty high level. But then he goes through a kind of a gauntlet. Loses to Themba Garimbo via decision. Gets rear naked choked by Jacoby Smith. Loses to Nikolai Veretennikov via knockout. And then submitted by Michael Chiesa. So 2 legends just worked their ass off. Classic story in the UFC. They weren't the biggest, the tallest, the most explosive, the most athletic. They just busted their asses. So high five, good career to both. Michael Chiesa won a moment in Seattle. And that kind of set the stage. The co-main and the main event. Whoo-wee! I tried to tell you the dog was coming to eat. Alexa Grasso with a you might have forgot moment. Massive round 1 knockout over Macy Barber. Deservingly performance of the night. 100 G's. I mean, I had a feeling we were going to see Alexa at her best here. Kind of with her back up against the wall. It took a little bit of time at the start of the fight. Much like the Casey O'Neill fight. Both women were kind of measuring the distance, feeling each other out. When Alexa blitzed forward, she hit Macy with a nasty combo. Just had a clean loaded right and literally knocked her out. She sat down, but her spine and back were still up. And she came in like an anaconda and choked her out, but it was unnecessary. There was debate. Should it be a knockout? Should it have been a submission? She was clearly knocked out. The rear naked choke was totally unnecessary. I like that it ended up being a knockout. And when she had the rear naked choke in, the ref jumped in immediately. They've properly ruled it a knockout. It was a bit of a scary sight as Macy was down for quite some time. Seems to be healthy, though. She's posted on social media, so that's great to hear. Regardless, massive win for Alexa. Beautiful performance. Showcased her elite boxing. Debatably one of the more vicious, insane finishes. You know, kind of a submission knockout finish. Up there in the leaderboard for women's MMA. And she's right back in the mix. Macy being on a big win streak. Definitely a tough loss. Tough visual, especially for non-MMA fans who aren't used to seeing stuff like that. But she was on a 7-fight winning streak. She's still so young. As long as she stays healthy, we will see more of Macy Barber. But it only took Alexa 12 total and significant strikes with a submission and a knockdown. Macy landed 5 total and significant. And Alexa ends that 2-fight losing streak. She starts a new winning streak. She's now 2-2-1 since 2023. And Macy ends that 7-fight winning streak. Starts a new losing streak. Both women stay at their rankings. So Alexa number 3, Macy number 5. I think it's pretty simple what to do with Alexa. Let's book Alexa Grasso, Manon Fiorot for a title eliminator fight. And for Macy, I'd like to see her fight Rose Namajunas. Debatably, she might be out for some time, so it might not be possible, but I would love to see that fight. Then in the main event, Be Like Joe. Another fight I got wrong. Joe Pyfer with a round 2 TKO over Israel Adesanya. Performance of the night, 100 G's to Joe. I just felt weird vibes the entire week. I thought we were going to see Izzy come out and absolutely dominate. He had the amazing walkout. Joe just looked like not the mean force we've seen. He came on the MMA Hour. He said some stuff after the fight about cheating on his girlfriend, almost committing suicide, and then said that he is now really close to God and he's trying to he's trying to change. So knowing all this, a lot of that makes sense. I thought he was kind of starstruck and fighting Israel Adesanya was maybe too big of a moment for him. But it wasn't too big of a moment for him. I was wrong. Again, I thought Izzy was going to dominate on the feet and defending takedowns would be critical. Well, he did do well defending takedowns, and he did have some success. This was a pretty competitive fight for the first 2 rounds. But the thing that I think's missing with Izzy is he just doesn't have the speed that he had. He doesn't have that quick twitch, and wasn't as powerful as he used to be. And I felt like he was a little bit hesitant. You know, you're on a 3-fight losing streak. You're fighting a young, hard-hitting fighter. Understandable. But it was a good first 2 rounds. Both men landed some big shots. Izzy landed some nice shots on Joe early. Joe didn't showcase any good striking defense, so I thought he could have been more aggressive. Had Izzy... Joe did have some lazy takedown attempts that I felt like he got away with. Izzy was looking pretty tired in round 2 as well, which this is a 5-round fight. That was a little bit surprising to me. But once Joe had taken him down the second, he tried to give his back to get back up, and kind of was just full mount dominated. All of his weight was back on the hips of Izzy, and he was just legs flailing, couldn't do anything. It just kind of looked like a weird scene. You don't see that very often. And, Joe was just teeing off on him. The ref came in. I hate to see a finish that way. That's why I said I would have liked to see a little bit more. Regardless, brutal for Izzy. I'm not saying that he can't fight in the UFC and he needs to retire, but he's closer to retirement than we think. I feel like the crisp Izzy would have exposed Joe in this fight. Not the best striking defense. I felt like, again, he had lazy takedown attempts. Regardless, biggest moment in Joe Pyfer's career. You know, he really got pushed down when he lost to Jack Hermanson. Look how he's rebounded. Now he is in the mix of a stacked division, so he better get ready. Statistically, Izzy landed 58 total strikes, 42 of them significant. He was 0 for 2 in takedowns. Joe landed 52 total, 36 of them significant. He was 2 for 8 in takedowns with 2 minutes and 44 seconds of control time. And when Izzy was fully mounted, again, he was in guard. He gave his back up to try to get up. Joe posted him there. He probably landed about 20 strikes right here. So if we subtract those 20 strikes, he only had 32 total, 16 significant the first minute and a half, or round and a half before that. So again, Izzy wasn't, it's not like he's washed. He was competitive. I just feel like what made Izzy special was that speed, that quick twitch, the precision. I just didn't see it here, and I think that's what's affected him to lose some of these fights. But I don't think he looked as good as he did in the Nasruddin Imavov fight, who I think is also a better striker. Regardless, Joe extends that winning streak to 4. He's 6-1 since 2023. He moves up 8 spots to number 6. Welcome to the show. Israel extends that losing streak to 4. He is only 1-4 since 2023. He drops 5 spots to number 9. Crazy to see. And Izzy had a cool moment on his walkout. Had the wherewithal to see Mighty Mouse. He'd already been abducted, gave him his flowers. They're very close friends. And Mighty Mouse has said that he thinks Izzy should retire. He doesn't need the money. Go do bigger, better things. But I hope we get to see a couple more fun Izzy fights. So what's next? I think Joe and Anthony Hernandez is the fight to make. I thought we'd see that fairly soon, but I guess Joe might have broken his hand. Hopefully he didn't. And he said that he's nursing injuries on the Ariel Helwani show, so maybe, he won't fight in the near future. But I would love to see him fight Anthony Hernandez. And for Israel, he's definitely in a weird situation. But I do like the idea. Izzy might not like it. But Israel Adesanya and Christian Leroy Duncan, I think that's a win-win for everybody. But what a night. Mighty Mouse inducted. The Ricky Simone fight, Navajo, knockout, Casey O'Neill, Tyrell Fortune, UFC debut, Battle of Seattle, Lance Gibson, vicious knockout. Fight of the night, a little bit criticism on it, but Tofik Mosayev, a bloodfest. Terrence McKinney, slight work. Yusri Belgari, very impressive. Chiesa retirement. Alexa Grasso, holy shit. And Joe Pyfer. Well, this weekend we don't get the same kind of love. It's UFC Fight Night Vegas 115, back at the Meta Apex. Prelims 2 p.m. Pacific, main card 5 p.m. Pacific, all on Paramount Plus. To preview this card, the prelims are very light. There is a mix of veterans and some new faces to the promotion. The main card's okay. Has some exciting names for me, a diehard. We got Tommy McMillan, another Montanan. I'm always rooting for my Montana and YO boys. He fights out of the Red Hawk Academy. Is kind of Tim Welch's second UFC star. We have a strong women's strawweight fight and a very fun main event. I am previewing this a 5 out of 10. There are a lot of solid fights to tune into that I won't be breaking down, either because there's very new names or I think they're lopsided or maybe grappling fests. We have Alessandro Costa taking on Stuart Nickel. Elise Pajeda, Alex's sister, taking on Haley Cohen. Contender Series alum Jose Delano taking on KSW alum Robert Ruchala. Guillermo Pat taking on Thomas Peterson. Abdul Rahman Yakyayev taking on Bretson Ribeiro. And then the newly booked Kai Kamaka and Fury FC alum Dakota Hope. We will preview one prelim fight. We have Azamat Iron Bakoev, 30 years old with a 20-4 record, taking on Trayshawn Mr. Vicious Gore, 32 years old with a 6-4 record. This is a solid fight. Two men in their primes, 30 and 32. They definitely need to stack up some wins here. You know, Azamat is coming off a tough loss against Yusri, where he was grappling dependent, and Trayshawn really hasn't had his moment in the UFC yet. He was thought highly of from the Ultimate Fighter. He's only really lived off 2 guillotine submissions. Breaking this down, Azamat has an orthodox stance. He trains out of American Top Team. He's an LFA alum and former champion with 1 successful title defense. He's on a 1-fight losing streak and is 2-1 in the UFC. 8 of his 20 wins are via knockout, 8 via submission, so 16 of his 21 wins via finish. And there is some very steep favorites in this card. Now, Trayshawn is an Ultimate Fighter alum. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. He's 1-2 since 2024. Like to see him be more active. 3 of his 6 wins are via submission. 2 of his 4 losses are via knockout. And he does have a 3-inch reach advantage. Now, both of these men are powerful strikers. Maybe not the fastest, and don't have the best footwork. But I'd give Azamat the technical advantage with the striking. I would say both men are pretty even with their grappling skills. I do think Trayshawn could be fighting for his UFC life, so I do expect him to take some chances here. So this does have a potential to be a high-paced, high-action fight. That's why we're breaking it down. But they do have Azamat at a -600, roughly average favorite. Decent odds enough for me. I am taking Azamat Bakoev. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on to the main card. 406 represent. We get the UFC debut of Tommy Gun McMillan. 28 years old with an undefeated 9-0 record. Taking on Manolo Angelo Venanzio Zicconi. 29 years old with an 11-4 record. Now, if you don't know Tommy McMillan, go back and watch the Contender Series fight. It was an amazing fight. 2 really good prospects. David Magoyan fighting on the MVP card now. I'm sure he'll be in the UFC eventually. Young kid, fights with Armin. They're from the same country. Tommy Gunn's fun. He's marketable. He knows how to speak on the mic. He's very aggressive. I like the Twitter sphere saying that he's like the ghetto version of Sean O'Malley. Tall for the division, long, lengthy striker. He was I think a 3-time state champion in Montana wrestling, so he has solid grappling, but he doesn't use it unless needed. And to be honest, I feel like this fight's kind of served on a platter for him in his UFC debut. They're trying to build a star, because I don't know if Manolo is really, to be honest, UFC level. And I think he gets brutally finished here and maybe doesn't fight in the UFC. Regardless, although these guys are Tommy making his UFC debut and Manolo his second UFC fight, they're not even in their primes yet. Tommy's only 28, Manolo only 29. But they need to, get in there, stack up some wins to make a fighting living. When you're almost 30 making your debut, it's not easy. But Tommy had an amazing Contender Series fight. He showcased his heart, his grit, his cardio. David almost had him finish in the first round. He fought back, showed that dog in him. But it's interesting because he was originally fighting the Contender Series was supposed to fight Austin Bashi, who's come in. People thought very highly of him. Then he was supposed to fight Cody Law. I'm not too sure what happened. He eventually fought David Magoyan, but he was going to fight some high-level people. Still had an impressive Contender Series win, but there's a reason he's on the main card. He does have potential. He's going to be a finisher. And Manolo's kind of come out of nowhere, took a short notice fight against Morgan Schreier, lost in the first round. So again, I just don't feel like he's going to be a UFC athlete. Breaking this down, Tommy trains out of Red Hawk Academy here in Arizona. He has a wrestling style. He's a Rough and Contender Series alum. He's undefeated on a 9-fight winning streak. Seen a couple of those in person here in Phoenix. 5 of his 9 wins are via submission, 3 via knockout, so 8 of his 9 wins via finish. That's what the UFC loves. Now, Manolo is a Cage Warriors alum. He's on a 1-fight losing streak in his UFC debut. 9 of his 11 wins are via knockout. 2 of his 4 losses are also via knockout. So to knock out or be knocked out. Now, I think, Tommy's going to have the height advantage. I think he'll be also having a speed advantage, and he's going to be able to show out with his striking in this fight. Again, if needed, he's going to be able to get takedowns. I expect a coming out party for those of you that don't know Tommy Gunn. He's here to open up the main card and set up a big fight later this year. The Vegas odds are pretty insane. Tommy in some places are a minus 1,400 favorite. On average, over 1,000, which you don't see odds like that. But again, I think that has a lot to do with Manolo. Regardless, if you haven't watched Tommy fight, make sure to tune in. I am taking Tommy McMillan, but I'm not putting him on a parlay because the odds are too high. Moving on, we get Ethan the Professor Finesser Ewing, 28 years old with a 9-2 record, taking on Rafael Macapa Estevam, 29 years old with an undefeated 14-0 record. So as Rafael has neared his prime, he's struggled to make weight at the flyweight division. I'm not sure if they forced him up or he's just sick of trying to cut weight. So he'll be making his bantamweight debut after an impressive string of victories since his Contender Series debut. Now Ethan, he was known for getting that short notice fight against Malcolm Wellmaker. It was a cool story. Malcolm Wellmaker used to be a welder. Ethan working in construction, gets the fight on a week's notice. Literally a week after winning the A1 Combat title, which is Uriah Faber's promotion, showed out against Malcolm Wellmaker, and now he's going to look to continue his winning ways against a guy that's been tough in the flyweight division, kind of a weight bully, but now he can't weight bully in the bantamweight division. Now, Ethan is an LFA Cage Warriors and A1 alum. He's on a 9-fight winning streak, 1-0 in the UFC, and 6 of his 9 wins are via knockout. Now, Rafael is an LFA and Contender Series alum. He's undefeated on a 14-fight winning streak, 4-0 in the UFC. I mean, looking at this fight, clearly Rafael has lived off taking his opponents down and controlling where the fight goes. Well, Ethan's well-rounded. I think he's going to have to weather an early storm because Rafael comes at you at a high pace. That's pretty typical in the flyweight division. But Ethan has solid grappling. I think he'll have solid grappling defense. And I think if he gets out of the first round, I think he's going to pour it on because Estevam is definitely tired out. And again, the weight issues, it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. But I do expect Rafael to come in aggressively, put a pace, multiple takedown attempts. We'll see how Ethan reacts. But the later this fight goes, the more it favors Ethan. I think this is a close fight. But for the sake of picking, I will take Ethan Ewing. But I'm avoiding this on any parlays possible. That sets us up for the co-main. A massive strawweight fight. We get Tabitha, Baby Shark Ricci. 31 years old with a 12-3 record and the number 7 next to her name. Taking on Virna Kakara Jandaroba. 37 years old with a 22-4 record and the number 3 next to her name. Now, Virna's really been a thorn in this division side because of her relentless grappling and cardio. She was stifled by Mackenzie Dern, but she still showed that she could fight at a high level. Tabitha is very fast. She's a technical fighter. She did have a recent knockout, but she's not known for having a ton of power and has been susceptible to being taken down. She could get takedowns of her own, but I don't expect her to have that in her game plan whatsoever in this fight. Breaking it down, Virna has a black belt in BJJ, a green-white Prajid in Muay Thai. She's an Invicta alum and former champion with 1 successful title defense. She's tied with Mackenzie Dern for most submission attempts in UFC women's strawweight history with 16. She has the 3rd most top position time in women's strawweight history with 47 minutes, 20 seconds. The 3rd most submissions per 15 minutes in women's strawweight history at 1.81. She's on a 1-fight losing streak, 3-1 since 2024. 14 of her 22 wins are via submission, and she does have a 3-inch reach advantage. Now, Tabitha is also a black belt in BJJ and a black belt in Judo. She's an LFA alum. She's on a 1-fight winning streak and is 3-1 since 2024. Now, Tabitha is going to have to stay on her bike, circle a lot, and continue to move. Because what Virna likes to do is kind of duck her head, throw power strikes, and lead into takedowns. So if she's moving, she can avoid that, and she could wear out the older Virna. Tabitha has fantastic kicks as well. I think she's going to have to be careful in this fight, though, because if she throws too many kicks, that could lead to her being taken down. But if Tabitha's going to win, I think it'll be a close decision by just throwing more volume. Virna's almost 38 years old, so you'd think she'd be slowing down, but she didn't show a lot of slowdown, even though she lost to Mackenzie in October of last year. I've bet against Virna many a times. I just don't know how Tabitha is going to be able to keep Virna off her. And when Virna's on you, she's really good at holding you down. So I think she could still round 1. If she steals another round, you win on the scorecards. For that reason, I'm taking Virna Jandiroba, but this is a close one. I am not putting this on any parlays. I'm rooting for Baby Shark. Virna, again, been a thorn in this division side for a long time. Then we have the main event. 2 teammates going at it. We get Renato Moicano, 36 years old with a 27-1 record and the number 10 next to his name, taking on Chris the Problem Duncan, 32 years old with a 15-2 record. Now, Chris has been on a tear. He won me a lot of money in his last fight. He's a violent, well-rounded fighter that has finishes in 3 of his last 4 wins. But Renato has been fighting the best competition in the world for the past 4 years. He's also showcased a very impressive finishing ability. Now, both men are well-rounded. They've obviously trained in the gym. They know how that goes, so someone's got to have a confidence edge here. But I give Moicano the edge on the ground. But when this fight is standing, anything is possible. That's what makes this a great main event. A win here really gets Chris in the mix of things, which he needs to be. He's in the middle of his prime at 32. And a loss for Moicano, he's definitely on the outside looking in as he nears 37. So there's a ton on the line here in a 5-round fight. I don't think we see a 5 rounds. I think we do see a finish. And Moicano has also always impressed me with his striking because I don't think of him as a striker. And I can't get out of my mind that massive win he had against BSD. Breaking this down, Renato has a submission grappling style. He trains out of American Top Team. He has a black belt in BJJ and Muay Thai. He had the 2024 Comeback of the Year against Jalen Turner. He's a Jungle Fight alum and former interim champion. He's on a 2-fight losing streak, 3-2 since 2024, and 10 of his 20 wins are via submission. Now, Chris trains out of American Top Team as well. 2 of his last 4 fights were Fight of the Night or Performance of the Night. He's showing up and showing out. He's a Bellator and Contender Series 2-time alum. He's on a 4-fight winning streak and is 4-1 since 2024. 7 of his 15 wins are via knockout, and 1 of his 2 losses, each one of them by knockout, 1 of them by submission. Again, I expect a finish. Now, I think Chris is going to be the pressure fighter early. There'll probably be some crazy collisions with striking, but I think Renato looks to take Chris down and eventually does a good job once he gets a takedown, staying on top. That's the big difference here. I think Moicano is going to control the fight and eventually get a submission. But if Chris could do a good job getting back up, I think it will favor him, especially this being a 5-round fight and being the younger fighter. And I do think he's a little bit more durable. But for the sake of picking, I'm taking Renato Moicano. I am avoiding this on any parlays. I can't wait for this one to shake out. Again, very light card. Bakoev and Tresean Gore probably fighting for his UFC life. Welcome to the world, Tommy Gunn. Hell yeah, Montana. Ethan Ewing, can he keep it winning against a former weight bully who's undefeated? Strawweight, everything on the line with Virna and Tabitha Ricci. And then a big main event. That sets us up next week. I have this, my early submission, a card of the year. The UFC has been known for putting on big shows in Miami, but the full card, the main card, absolutely stacked. It's headlined with 2 title fights. The Young Men Showdown, Joshua Van and third-ranked Tatsuro Taira, and Yuri Prohaska taking on Carlos Olberg. That's episode 140. I'm your host, Shane Gillette. See you next week.